God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Board of Education, nothing there. Consent agenda. Someone wants to join. Oh, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any board discussion on any part of this? Any audience input? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by saying nay.
Thank you.
Appears unanimous. That. We have audience time.
I think so.
Is there somebody in the audience who wants to participate and bring something up for the board? Hearing nothing. We will move to decision items. We need to award a bread bid.
Len, you still with us?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, good. Who wants to bid on
Comments the
bread?
bread bid?
I bid 99 cents.
Oh, well, what's that get you?
We went out on a group bid with, I think, 13 other school districts for bread and milk both. Shiloh from Newburgh was kind of in charge of doing the paperwork for the dairy bid, and Cindy in McMinnville was kind of in charge of doing the paperwork for the bread bid. Came out that Goody Man was the one that we recommended that we award for the bread. And what is it? I can't remember the name of the place now. Spring Valley, I believe, for the dairy.
Yep.
Spring Valley we've had before. They did a great job. They just lost a bid last time it came up for bid. And Goody Man we haven't had before, but they have really good recommendations.
Did we, going in with 11 other school districts, did we see any cost savings?
Yeah. Yeah, they gave us group pricing for all of those. But each individual school district has to approve the award and then do an individual contract with each one.
Okay.
Okay.
And Len did provide you with suggested motions on each of those bids. It's at the bottom of the page.
I recommend the district accept and award RFP B 2020-2025 to Goody Man Distributing for the 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the RFP number Bravo 2020-2025 to Goody Man for the 2020-2021 school year. Any discussion among the board? I do have a question. Is this a 1-year contract or 5-year contract, or is it a 5-year base with renewables after the first year?
Renewable for 5 years or 4 years after the base year.
Okay, thank you.
Both contracts are.
I do have another question, I guess. Is it that distributing the way it's spelt, or is there supposed to be a U in there somewhere? Or?
I probably made a typo, knowing me.
Okay, Any audience input? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of approving the district award RFP B 2020 to 2025 to Goodyman Distributing for the 2020-2021 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay.
you.
Appears unanimous. Next, we're dealing with a bid for produce.
Go spring, next page, you flip the.
Yeah, Spring Valley,
That's on the back of,
yes.
Oh, mine says
The dairy.
dairy. So.
Mhm.
well, okay, then let's go with dairy.
I recommend the dairy accept and award RFP D 2020-2025 to Spring Valley for the 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Been moved and seconded to accept the RFP number D 2020-2025 to Spring Valley for the 2020-2021 school year. Any board discussion? Any audience input? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of accepting and awarding this contract to Spring Valley under RFP D 2020-2025 to Spring Valley for the 2020-2021 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay.
Thank you.
Then appears unanimous to have passed. Then we have extension of food products and non-food supplies RFP award to Cisco.
I recommend the district extend the 2017, are those
Yeah,
correct?
that's when we started
Okay,
it.
2017, 2018 food products and non-food supplies RFP award to Cisco Portland for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded to extend the 2017 to 2018 food products and non-food supplies to Cisco for the 2020-2021 school year. Any board discussion? Any audience input?
This one is on, is it the last year or second to the last year? When?
I think it's second to last.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, a call for the vote. All in favor of extending the contract with Cisco to the 2017 to 2018 food products and non-food supplies contract to Cisco Portland for the 2020-2021 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. Again, it appears to have passed unanimously.
Lynn, do you want to go over your handout report now?
Thank you all. I apologize for not getting my report in time for your board packets. Deb's just too darn efficient for me. I think that she handed out my board report. I'm basically just going to read it to you guys, so lose track. The nutrition services team has been working really hard this spring, feeding the children of the community. In March, we had a weekend to shift gears from our National School Lunch Program to the Summer Food Service Program and add an additional 5 feeding sites into the community. The main difference between the National School Lunch Program and Summer Food Service Program is that the summer program, we can feed all children from 1 to 8 at no cost with no questions asked. And the meal pattern, it slightly differs. This year, the USDA also granted waivers that allowed students to take the meals home. Usually on their summer programs, they have to keep them on site, usually a park. And they also granted waivers for the parents to pick up the meals for the children and for us to serve breakfast and lunch at the same time of the day, so we didn't have to have any gaps between breakfast and lunch service. From the middle of March to the end of May, we served 18,001 breakfasts and 19,007 lunches. That's about an average of 335 children a day. In June, we switched programs again to our regular summer food service program that we've been doing for the last 25 years. But this time we added the Willamina Post Office and the museum at Grand Round, which is where the old Grand Round grade school and middle school was. We also added Wandering Spirit, and we added River's Edge as well for most. No, we didn't. We added River's Edge for the spring one. Some apologies. Anyway, so in June and July, we provided 7,687 breakfasts and the same amount of lunches because we served the 2 meals at the same time again, which works out to an average about 238 children a day. And that's compared to about 1,228 lunches on an average and an average of 63 students per day that we did last year. So we definitely increased. We were also able to give away school supplies, shoes, and hygiene kits at our meal distribution site. And that was in the spring, in March, April, and May. And I wanted to thank First Federal and the McKinney-Vento program for grants for that. In September, there's again and provide meals under the National School Lunch Program to our remote learners. At this time, there's only a few waivers that were provided last spring and summer that have been extended. This means that as of now, under the National School Lunch Program, we can only provide meals to children that are school age and that are within our attendance boundary instead of the ages 1 through 18 like we were able to in this time. This includes, one of the waivers includes the time that the students are, this includes the time that students are remote learners. We will need to have a number of checks and balances to make sure that we're meeting all the state and federal National School Lunch Program requirements. And we're planning to do this in part by having the parents register their children for school meals when they register them for school. We'll then train the cooks, the bus drivers, and other staff to deliver meals on school bus stops. As with most plans this year, this meal distribution structure, it may change over time and depending on the waivers and everything else that happens with the state. Our kitchen itself is also going through some changes. The cooks have volunteered to paint the pantry. They did that today. It looks wonderful. New shelving is being installed on the 19th. And we're also replacing our stacking oven units. 2 of those oven units were new with the building, which is almost 40 years old now. We've also gotten 3 small food packaging systems and a blast chiller. The funds for these projects came from excess operating balance. The blast chiller will help us to be able to prepare and freeze individual servings of our scratch cooked main entrees that we usually make. And the packaging systems will help us individually wrap fresh fruits and vegetables so that we can make sure that we include those things in our remote learner meals. Again, I want to thank and applaud my nutrition staff flexibility in getting our communities meals at such short notice. Like I said, we only had about a weekend's turnaround to totally flip our program. And only one of those cooks was experienced in the summer lunch program. So that meant that the other 4 had to do a real quick training, and they were just fantastic at making sure that all those kids got the meals. Are there any questions?
Sounds like you did a wonderful job, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
I would just like to add truly how lucky we are to have Lynn. She has received recognition on the state and national level for a very good reason. The way our programs ran is a model for the state of Oregon, and it is due to her skill set. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Carrie.
And to think you had the nerve to leave us for a while.
Glad she's back.
Okay. Any other reports we should go over?
Well, this is our goal session. And, you know, in the past, we would take August and develop district goals at the meeting. However, ODE has changed the way they expect you to set goals now as a district. So I just gave you some documents at the last board meeting and some that are in this board meeting for you to review and for us to look at and review the district improvement goals and see, you know, if there's any input from the board that they would like to add and have included in the documents we currently have, or revisions, questions. I'm just here to answer anything and everything and make sure your voice is relevant in our documents that we have. So I gave you some of the details from the last 4 years on the key indicators. So those key indicators are what the state uses to basically determine whether we are doing what we set out to do and achieving satisfactory milestones for the state. So those are that K2 attendance rates, 3rd grade reading scores, 8th grade math scores, 9th grade on track to graduate, and 4-year graduation rates. I gave you also the last 2 years. This is the new at a glance that the state has come up with that gives those key, and they include a 6th one, which is that academic progress as well. So those are those key indicators just in a real easy to read format with more information on the back that's broken down by subgroups for the district. I also gave you a summary of our student investment account plan and our blueprint for the reopening. There's a lot of plans that have to be created and submitted and approved by ODE. So it's, you know, I feel like sometimes it's a moot point trying to build independent goals when so many goals are predetermined for us. It's a matter of us building the right strategies, really, is where I think the input is at the district level. What are the strategies that help us get to achieving the goals at the level we want to be?
I've got a question on what is this? The Continuous Improvement Plan 2018 through 21. There's a couple of things in here. Were inequities in student outcomes examined? And then you go down to the bottom and yes, we spent a great deal of time looking at the performance of all students in English language arts and math. While performance was poor across the grade levels, we saw a significant gap with our boys and our chronically absent students. So I get the chronically absent student thing. I mean, if you're not there, you're not going to learn. But I mean, we've got boys and we've got girls, and so that's give or take half of the kids, isn't it?
Right.
So what's our plan?
So
what's
for
our
boys,
strategy?
for improving, helping boys be successful, or?
Yeah, right off the document.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we know is behavior tends to be one of the things that that we have to be thinking about, because boys probably represent 70% of behavioral incidents as far as what gets written up, what gets sent to the office, and ultimately who gets excluded from school to a certain extent, which can have a direct impact, or who's not sitting in the classroom getting instruction. And so we know that we need to revisit and dig deeper what's going on and how can we interrupt that behavior to help them be successful in the classroom, and perhaps improve our skill set to handle whatever those behaviors are in a different way, so that we're not just pushing them out of the classroom. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't even amount to that they're sent home, but they're sent out of class. And if they're sitting in an office waiting to talk to someone else and missing 30 minutes of math instruction,
Mhm.
that's gonna pile up. And so those are the things we need to be more cognizant of how often kids are missing instruction because of behaviors or absenteeism, and how often as they get older do they just not want to come anymore if that's, the culture for them.
That's an observation, that's not an answer.
Okay, so our answer is we're investing in Ruler. We're investing in the good behavior game. We're investing in social emotional learning and looking at other ways to problem solve that will keep kids in the classroom.
Okay.
And if something escalates and there is a behavior that pushes the boundary and requires removal, then making sure that they can be in a place where they can still be working on an academic, which is why we have like the rise room and the relaxation station and the echo room, is so that academics can still be addressed. And we're not just sitting a student idle in an office waiting to be talked to. That academics has to be why they're here, and that has to be the biggest component of their day.
Okay, thank you. I'm not picking on you, I'm just.
No,
wanting to
it's
know
a
what
great
you're
question,
thinking,
and
so.
it's one that really I struggle with personally because I see, for instance, and this is not just Willamina, this is probably across the nation, boys represent about 66% of the special ed caseloads K through 12. And we know their brains they're just as capable, obviously, of doing grade level work, but sometimes the expectations we have of school doesn't match their learning style. And so we tend to see that we're comparing them to a standard that in the end may not be most beneficial to them when it comes to being on track and graduating. So it's definitely something that is being addressed on a national level.
Okay.
Well, when it comes to responsibility and discipline, I really feel it's important that we don't fall prey to not making our students be accountable or in disciplinary action stuff where, I mean, I understand the education part of it and it's very important. We don't want them to be pulled out, but too many times I think kids aren't being held accountable for their actions and therefore the problem never goes away. So
Yeah.
I don't know how we,
Yeah, and on the
fix
flip
that,
side of it, I think what we find out is, we've been using these same practices truly for almost 100 years, and the problem hasn't gone away. So when do we start looking at a different way to respond and knowing that these preventative, because you're going to spend the time no matter what. You can spend the time on prevention or you can spend the time reacting and just assigning consequence. So if we put more effort into the preventative pieces and how do we build skills in our teachers and how do we build skills in our kids to cope better so they can handle whatever stresses they're having so that it's not an outward response and a behavior that might end up getting them in trouble. How can they learn to cope better with their emotions or whatever it is that is causing them to behave in a way that excludes them from classroom?
and I'd agree with that. I mean, the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the what so many of the programs that we are implementing are focused on, that preventative piece. How do we prevent the behaviors and give kids the skills to really own their own emotions, and how do they take ownership of their own education even?
I have a question on the Oregon at a Glance 2018-19. Grade 12 on-time graduation, 83%. So far as mathematics is concerned, what is required to graduate?
They have got to have 3 years of math and, at least Algebra 2,
Okay,
to get a standard diploma. Now they can earn a modified diploma with 2 years of math. And it does not have to be up to an Algebra 2 standard.
okay. Taking these students back 5 years, or 4 years, whatever it might be, 19% are meeting state grade level expectations in mathematics as 8th graders.
Mhm.
How do they make the jump to graduate on time? And can we apply that to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to bring up the 8th grade scores?
Right. No, and you'll notice in our continuous improvement plan, that is why math and ELA have become the most critical core subjects for us to address, because we know our kids are performing far below where they need to be, particularly in math. We did see a pretty significant jump in 3rd grade reading this last year. But math was status quo. That we saw that jump in math from the 16-17 to the 17-18 year, but still 19% is pitiful. It is not anywhere where we need to be. And we've invested in new curriculum, we've invested in professional learning for our staff. One of the things I would say though is we've had a high turnover at the middle school level in math teachers. We've had a new math teacher every year for the last 3 years, 4 years. So that in itself is tough.
Okay.
So are you comfortable with your operational blueprint for this reentry?
I am. I mean, it's really a safety protocol heavy, which we don't have a lot of local control over, obviously. It's more of a compliance piece, putting together and making sure you've got the partnerships with your local public health authority to help you navigate, you know, in the event that there's an outbreak and minimize the risk that there will be.
So we're obviously not gonna, pretty obviously not going to start out with the hybrid model.
We can't
Yeah,
because of our metrics. We've got to meet Yamhill and Polk's metrics before we can open, and we're not even close to the exception for opening up K3. So the state's allowing an exception to have K3 students on site if you can get your numbers down to below 30 and maintain them and keep that statewide test positivity rate at 5% or less. But we've been climbing over the last few weeks in Yamhill and Polk County.
so does that mean that there's a potential that we could have our K through 3 kids here and not the rest of them? Okay.
Yeah, so they've made an exception for K through 3 just because they feel like, and most teachers will agree that it's just really difficult to instruct online with kindergartners for the really young students. And learning to read when you're just learning is next to impossible without being able to have kids on site and have that on, you know, just to keep their attention, truly. So the state has made exceptions for K through 3 if case numbers can get at 30 and stay there consistently, that you should potentially open to K through 3 students.
How do they possibly think all those kids are gonna keep masks on their face?
Well, it's gonna be difficult. I think, you know, that the reality is we know they're not, and it's just gonna be modeling and practice and reminders.
Does it have to be masks or can it be?
No, it can be any type of face covering.
Shields or whatever.
Bandana, shields, scarves. But it will certainly be a challenge.
Anything to bring up for future agenda items?
I wanted to ask a quick question about the long-range facility plan.
Okay.
Are we still looking like we're on board with the 2020 completion, 2022 completion of the water upgrade line?
Yes, so I've been involved in fire board meetings recently, because they were holding off on the permit for the relief nursery due to the water. And finally, the board agreed to sign the memo of understanding with the Lutheran Family Service, with the school district, with the city, and between the fire board, and they're going to be putting a water storage tank up here temporarily until the actual construction of the water line's completed. But Kenna West, the city manager, did speak to the project, and based on the grant, it has to be completed by 2022. So that is definitely the timeline that the contractor will be working on. And just an update, our new bleachers are in. They got installed and they were completed Saturday night at 10:30.
Wow.
So people worked around the clock to get those done, and they are really nice.
Can we see them tonight?
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about September meeting starting at district office? Carrie took a wall out and there's like a little conference room there now. So we can start our meeting there. And then Craig wants to take you to see the life skills building, the bleacher project, just several things that they've done that aren't quite done tonight. But he wants to come September and take you on a tour.
That'd be great.
If everybody likes that idea.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll plan on starting at the district office then. I'll make sure that's on the agenda.
Do we have carts to ride, or are we gonna have to walk around this thing?
Should we start it at 6:30 for the tour so
Up
that
to you.
the virtual meeting could then start at 7?
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, 6:30, DO, begin. Okay, then we can always come here
Yeah.
at 7 so that
Yeah.
Richard has it all set up.
Start there.
Perfect.
So is it, to my understanding, the fall sports is being postponed till spring, is that correct?
What's
Fall sports.
So fall sports, OSAA came out with their plan. They've created a schedule for all 3 seasons to occur. There'll be abbreviated seasons, about 7 weeks long. The first season will begin in January. So the traditional winter sport will be January, February. So that will be wrestling and basketball. And then March and April will be the traditional season 1, football, volleyball, cross country. And then May and June will be the traditional 3rd, baseball, softball, track.
And at this point, are they entertaining spectators or no spectators yet?
I haven't heard those details of the plans at this point. It will be, because it will be abbreviated, they'll do basically in-league contests only. And then there will be a 1-week accumulation of a subtype of championship. And it might just be a league championship. I don't know what the details of what that will look like at the state level, but they're dedicating only 1 week to type of championship.
No real on-site state tournaments this year, right?
Right. Right. Well, we got through basketball. We got through 3A basketball
Yeah.
as normal. And then at that point, that was like the last
Yeah, 4A.
state event. And then everything was shut down after that.
That's right.
Yeah,
Because our girls got to participate, and then the next week, the 4A and 5A and 6A did not. And then they're allowing they're lifting the rule of no contact between coaches and athletes for the fall. So from August, the official start date, I think, is August 17th through that first official practice date for season 1. They're allowing coaches to have contact with their athletes, so they could do weight training, they could do some practicing.
They can do that through the fall season,
Yes,
or the supposedly.
right.
Better than nothing, I guess. Football in March would be weird, but
Kinda cool, though, one of mine was co-league champion in softball and baseball this year.
Oh, yeah, nice,
Nobody played.
right.
Is there anything else of importance to bring up? We received an FYI packet, a stapled thingy.
A strange letter.
That's one way to describe it, yes. And I don't want to address the contents of it. I want to address how the copies were made. Was the district responsible
This
for
was
providing
sent
copies?
to us. I
Okay,
made copies for you because it was addressed to you and the superintendent.
okay.
Yes.
I would like to suggest, just as a cost-saving measure, I know it's not a lot of money to make 5 copies or 6 copies. But just as a matter of policy, can we, unless we solicit the input from whoever, somebody sends us an unsolicited information packet, unless they have provided at least 6 copies, and I would say 7, so the district office has a separate copy as well, that unless they provide those 7 copies, a nice little letter goes back and says, thank you for your input. We cannot distribute it until we have 7 copies, 1 for each member of the board, the superintendent, and the district office. Is that something that can be done?
It is. Probably take more time and cost more to do that.
I think it would.
I mean, you get down to brass tacks,
Email.
my time.
I guess it could be sent electronically, maybe scanned and sent, but then I don't know if time you do that, it's probably just as it's probably cost effective just to put it on paper, so.
And I guess I just want a sense from the board that if something's addressed to you, that
Well, if it's addressed to us, we need to see
you
it.
see it.
That was my thought. That's always been a rule of thumb.
Yeah,
And this one was a little potentially off the wall.
But
I
who
dare
decides?
say, but who decides that?
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who decides what's good for you to see or not? So
Right.
if it's addressed to you, you get it.
I don't know, there were some cost-saving measures in there. No school under 8,
There definitely was.
no school above 16.
What time to write?
Right, maybe if they had a job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing else for the good of the order, we are adjourned.